2424. That's 616-774-2424. It's West Michigan Live with Justin Barkley on Wood Radio.
Well, good morning. Well, it's a little chilly and a lot windy. And temperature's falling. It's, I gotta say, it feels a little Arctic. It feels a little like you're on top of a mountain or something out there. This morning in West Michigan, we'll talk about that, plus everything else you want to hear about, but may not get to hear anywhere else. The stories that matter most. We're covering it all. The good, the bad, and the ugly, because, I just, call me crazy, but I think you deserve to hear it.
News, weather, and traffic.
The truth.
And the biggest stories of the day. We're talking about what matters most in West Michigan and beyond. This is the Big Three. Now today's Big Three.
The stories that matter most. Talk about these around the water cooler, the dinner table, no matter where you are. Powered by our good friends at Heartland Home Mortgage. You've heard me talk about how much I've saved, and many others saving thousands. In fact, just got a message from somebody the other day say, hey, I'm taking you up on that offer. Put a little bit more money back in your pocket. We did a home equity line of credit, a HELOC with them. Well, you may want to do a refi. In fact, you may even be looking to buy a home right now. There's all kinds of different solutions for folks that you got to find out what's best for you. Call them, 5 minutes. All it takes, one phone call. Dave Galloway and the team at Heartland Home Mortgage, happy to walk you through the process. Like I said, we just did a home equity line of credit. We crushed our credit card debt. Some of these credit cards hit with 25, 26%. You get the credit card for 0%, and then all of a sudden it pops up on you, 25%. Oh, gosh. All right, let's get rid of this thing. Let's wipe it out. We're back on track. You could be too. Heartland Home Mortgage, 616-974-9105, or go online to hhmlending.com. Get your house in order.
Number one.
With Heartland Home Mortgage. All right, the Senate voted yesterday 61-36 to pass a so-called Respect for Marriage Act, codifying same-sex marriage at a federal level. Critics say it would open religious nonprofits and social services to attacks on religious liberty. Democrats with the vote, 12 Republicans crossing over, voting yes, helping them get that done. This is kind of it's not as cut and dry as the headlines make it sound. So we'll try and go through some of this. The bill now moving the House, it's expected to pass in a final day's Democratic-controlled chamber before it's making its way to the White House, or Biden will sign it. It'll become law, and we'll talk about what's next. The House will vote later today on legislation they hope to avert a potentially devastating freight rail strike. No, it's not really going to affect the holidays, whether or not you get your presents and things like that, but it could affect whether or not you get food on your table. The oil and gas industry warning a rail shutdown would spark and fuel supply crunches and price hikes. A lot of these manufacturers looking for alternatives right now, moving things to trucks instead of rail, but the fuel that the trucks run on comes on rail. Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rhodes and fellow group member Kelly Meggs found guilty of seditious conspiracy Tuesday as a jury reached a verdict in a historic criminal trial of 5 alleged leaders of the right-wing, they call it, militia group. Without entering the Capitol, without weapons, they could face up to 20 years in prison in another travesty of justice, or I'll call it what it is, injustice. Anything that goes in front of these, completely left-wing loony juries in D.C. Doesn't end well. If you could get the stuff moved out of D.C., you might be able to get a fair trial, but none of this stuff ends well. You got a judge who's completely out there and fully biased. The judge is a swamp creature. The juries are made up of swamp creatures. You're not getting a jury of your peers. It really is. It's horrific what's happening. I spoke with Stuart Rhodes from jail on a podcast a while back. I'll search that up and see if I can post it online today in our stack. Every day I post stories. videos, links, things that we talked about on the show and what's called the stack on my website at justinbarclay.com. But he had a really interesting take on things. He explained some of his positions. I think he may have expected that it would go this way. In fact, he predicts that they will arrest, charge President Trump at some point. That was a fascinating interview. And again, we had to hang up, and he called from jail while he was awaiting trial. The call, you only get like 10, 15 minutes or whatever it is on the phone. And then, he had to call back because we'd run out of time. All right, call back. Then, we had to do that 3 or 4 different times. It was fascinating talking to somebody from jail. Now, you may believe this guy's radioactive. No one should talk to him. Nobody should, you don't agree with him and you don't agree with I get that. I understand. But, I think that people deserve, there's two ways to put this. People deserve to be heard. The left would say, I can't believe you platform these people. I can't believe you platform. Now, that's just left-wing talk for, I can't believe you actually allowed this person a chance to speak. An avenue to get their side of the story out. That's what the real problem with Twitter is right now. The real issue with Twitter right now, more than anything. In fact, they don't, these folks left-wing, they're just completely losing it because, no, you shouldn't be allowed to say certain things. No, we control the truth. We control the narrative. That's what they're more mad about anything else right now, Elon Musk and Twitter. They just can't handle the fact that the truth is actually getting out. And it's not their story, their narrative, their propaganda. That's the real problem. See, they're allowed to kind of have this group of news, quote unquote, news sources, official sources that you're only allowed to hear from them. You're only allowed to hear and repeat the certain narrative. See, but folks, that's not how life works. You get it. When you're being lied to, when you're being shoveled a load of bull. And that's what most of these days that we see in here. It's not just the alphabet networks, the local news, the paper. It's even Christian publications. Christian newsletter this morning had this story. I subscribe because they claim to be nonpartisan, and then they'll give you a spiritual angle after the story. And they covered the gay marriage bill. They covered this thing in the first part of their newsletter this morning. I read it through, and I go, and then it was okay, but still it lacked a lot of context, like the context I just gave you. There are some that are very happy that this thing has passed. They believe that it's going to save them in their marriage. Mayor Pete is out there celebrating. That's fine. I want to hear that side of things. In fact, I'm curious to know what Mayor Pete thinks. Not on every subject. But sometimes I want to know what folks are thinking. The other thing is, I want to know what the opposition thinks. The other side. Why are people why are they so concerned by this? Well, as I just told you, critics saying it opens up religious nonprofits, churches, social services to attacks on religious liberty. So whether or not a church would conduct a gay marriage, we already got them trying to make you bake cakes for whoever and whatever services, whatever. You should not have to go through these things, particularly churches. You know how all of this started? I think it was sort of reasonable. People said, hey, if I want to get married to another man or 2 women want to get married, whatever it is, they ought to be able to do that. Just leave me alone. I think reasonable people say, you know what, that's right. I just want to be left alone too, in fact. I like the government to let me, just get out of my way on these issues. Leave me alone. And I think that sounds reasonable. But it's not stayed there. We have the Overton window, the slippery slope, so-called slippery slope. Don't tell me there's no slippery slope. You got a company, fashion company, Balenciaga out there in just absolute panic mode right now because they got busted celebrating some sort of child sexualization, child pornography in their advertisements. And they're in full-on panic mode right now. People said, "No, this is just absolutely beyond the pale. You got these kids in these advertisements. Give me a break." The Overton window. See, they keep trying to push things a little bit further. The slippery slope is a real thing. They push things in culture. They push things. It's not just, hey, you do what you want in your own bedroom. I do what I want in my own bedroom. We won't talk about it. No, it's now we have to celebrate things. You have to celebrate how I live my life, how I choose to live my life, only if it fits a certain narrative. You know what I think the real problem is here, more than anything else? Government shouldn't be involved in this business of marriage. I should not have to go to the government to get a piece of paper, a license, and whatnot. I shouldn't have to go to the government to say, get approval of the government in marriage. Yeah, the tax benefit, all that stuff. Yeah. And I understand that maybe there was some well-intended meaning behind all of that. I get it. But that there should not be the only person, well, my spouse and God. That's what marriage is. Marriage is a covenant between your spouse and God. Government really can't even be involved in it. Government didn't give you the permission to get married. They didn't come up with the right for you to get married. That's not where any of this came from. So that's part of the big problem. And whether or not this will have the consequences that some believe it will, just remains to be seen. It's much like the Prop 3 that passed here in Michigan. Sold to the people of Michigan that, this was just to protect the rights of women to go get the abortions whenever they wanted. Rare in cases of rape or incest, or rare. In reality, that thing in that bill or in that proposition had more absolute radical and extreme language that would allow things, and we'll find out because eventually this will go into effect. I think it's Christmas Eve that it goes into effect. The lawsuits will begin sometime next year. You'll start to hear about them. So we'll find out. Does it really take parental consent away from the parent on all medical procedures and all these things? We're told you're radical, you're extreme, you're the problem. Folks in the right wing. No. By the way, these are just traditional values. Judeo-Christian values, which are laws, everything this country is woven into its fabric. It's the foundation for it all. They can act like it, they can play like it, they can say whatever they want, but the truth is it has always been and will be. That's just the way it is. I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. But now we hear of things like thruples. Well, I don't know. Why can't 3 people get married to each other and all get tax breaks? I'm serious. Why can't 3 people? Why can't you get married? Well, they're doing that in some places. They got the whole reality TV shows about that, don't they? Places like Utah, etc. But it's supposed to be illegal. Well, the government has opened up the doors now for any and all of this. Why can't I marry my dog? You say that's crazy. The story, we've had news stories of people wanting to marry inanimate objects. What does that even mean? I don't know. I'm just saying the government should never be involved in any of this. And then folks will say that are supporting all this. They will say, well, we should ought to have the same rights, and we get married in one state, go to another state, et cetera. And you understand, okay, some of these things add up, but the problem really is not marriage. It's the naming and definition. The naming and definition never should have been marriage. It should have been unions. But this is going to be something that, of course, will begin to play itself out. It's another culture war thing. And yes, it will be an issue. But listen, I know we're supposed to be fired up about this today. And I think, some of us rightly are in some ways. But this is not the biggest story of the day. This is not the biggest story of the day, folks. The question is, why would Republicans cross over and vote with Democrats? There are 12 Republicans. You have to ask the question, now, who are you people? Maybe they're voting for, this is in the Senate, by the way, but maybe they're voting for political reasons. There's a lot of politics involved. Some didn't vote at all. They're running this through into the year, trying to get it kind of slid because, they're not going to be able to do this when the Republicans take over the House. So there's a lot of this, it's all politics. I think that's a fair point to make. But it is not the biggest story of the day. It just happens to be one of the stories. And of course, the reason I talked about it is, Christian radio stations. There's a big one in town that claims to be the Christian radio station. Didn't hear them address Proposition 3 at all. Certainly, they're not going to have an opinion on this. Wouldn't want to offend anybody. That newsletter I told you about. Unsubscribe today. They usually have the story and they try to be as fair and balanced as possible. And then at the end, they have like a little bit of a spiritual, sort of a take on things, a little Bible verse or something like that. And it had something to do with, I don't remember exactly what it said, but maybe we ought to, I think it had something to do with, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe my ideas on things in the world are wrong. It's kind of essentially so I just wrote them back. So you're not going to take a stand on this. What are you going to take a stand on? What do you stand for at all? You got to ask yourself if you're listening. And I'm not saying to turn everything off in here, but if you're listening to these radios, so you're going to a church where they're not talking about any of these issues. You got to ask yourself, what are they supposed to do? What are they supposed to stand for? Now, I think these are important questions because, folks, we are entering a time where things continue. I think it's more blatant in your face on purpose and for a reason. We're entering a time where you're going to have to make a decision. You're going to have to make a choice. Ronald Reagan called this back in the 80s a time for choosing. But we are way past it. And we are reaping the consequences of folks who decided to sit on the sidelines and not make their choice. But please, don't be mistaken. If you sit it out, if you decide not to engage, not to choose, you have made your choice.
Call Justin now at 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. West Michigan Live with Justin Barclay on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM.
It's
for a smarter conversation about money, everyday wealth with Soledad O'Brien and Gene Chatsky.
So there you have it, folks. There you have it. Some of the story. We got a lot to get to. The live stream is over. I can still see you guys, though. Maybe somebody didn't like what I was talking about. They don't like the word gay in the... I can see your comments, though. Yeah, it looks like it's over. Oh my gosh, they booted me. Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. You can't hear me, so I can't tell you to go somewhere else. So, folks on Rumble, you already know we're already here. Maybe I'll just talk about that on the radio. Stand by, folks. Hang on. Get back on the air. Stand by. The behind the scenes live stream is happening. You can join us. Of course, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter. I just found out we got booted off of Facebook just now. Apparently, they cannot take the truth talk. You can take it. You can find us on Rumble if you want to watch. JustinBarclay.com/Rumble. Also Twitter, where free speech seems to reign, at least for the moment, at Mr. Justin Barclay, all the usual suspects and places. We'll be right back after this. You can join the program. Hang on. All right. I don't know. I'm going to have to find out if Facebook, what it's going to show is back to the start of the show. I'm going to have to start Facebook again. Let me see if I can start Facebook again. It says Facebook is unable to connect. I bet they've jammed me from going live on Facebook now. Well, that'll be interesting. That'll be fun. Maybe it's just the wording of the headline. I don't know. Hang on, folks. Just making sure the news gets on the air there. Okay, this is live. How do I change the title? Trying to change the title here on Facebook so we don't get booted again. I think that's what did it. Oh, and everybody was posting the sad faces. That probably did it. I bet that did it. I bet that's why they killed it. Okay, if you're watching on Facebook, do not click the sad faces. That's probably, I would say, because it happens so quickly. I don't think there's enough in an algorithm to understand exactly what I'm saying. There's probably just enough negative feedback because I can still go live, so it's not like I've been banned or anything. And the last video appears to be there. I don't see any negative. All right, I'm just going to. There we go. All right. I think that's fixed it. Folks, if you are watching on the Facebook, do not click the mad faces. I think that's what took us down. I think Facebook had some sort of thing where they kicked in and said, well, the people are reacting poorly to this. We're going to stop it. We were just booted from Facebook. Don't know why. But, hey, Rumble is working. I want to say good morning to the Rumblers today. A lot of folks have found that Rumble is the best way to watch. It's up to you, really. A lot of people also like Getter. People like Facebook. Some people really like YouTube. So just a couple of different ways to watch. You can also watch at justinbarclay.com. So hello, Rumblers. Rumble. Andrew, thank you, man. I appreciate you being here. Shared a couple of links on the Stack on Locals. Check them out when you can. Will do, my friend. Faye, Lady Blah Blah, Jay Gladson, Tom, always learning. Always a pleasure to see you, my brother. I appreciate you and your messages. Steve, good to see you too. With the heads up, you got booted off. You got booted off on Facebook. I know. Isn't that crazy? Rand's on Facebook. She says, I can't comment on Rumble. Yeah, I don't know. There's a way to do that. I can maybe next time I see you, I'll show you how to do it. Red Radical Realtor, good to see you on Getter. Real Andrew, Mr. Deplorable, Maggie Lynn, Additive, Flatlander. Good to see you too, MAGA all day over on Getter. Lots of good folks there. Now, if you're watching on Facebook, click share right now so we can get the word out. We're back on, etc. To get me on Getter, it's justinbarclay.com/Rumble. That's how you get me on Rumble. Did I say Getter? I got Rumble. All right. All right. Got the messages coming in right now. I think we've taken care of it. I think we've nailed it. We'll see. $17 more people expected to announce today that they're running for MIGOP charities. Well, Randy, I'm glad you made it. You know, I was worried about when you might get here. Oh, give me a break. Listen, I can't get into all that. First of all, I haven't talked a lot about it because it's such inside baseball that I don't know how many people really know about what's happening there, going on there, but maybe we'll get into it one day. Hang on. Let's get back on the air first. Joanne, the topic was the gay marriage bill that passed in the Senate. Jumping back on the air and on the phone lines, you can get it. 616-774-2424. That's the number to get in. Let's go to Casey from Wyoming, who's up first this morning. Appreciate you dialing in, Casey. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. What I'd like to talk about is some of the reasons why I think the Republicans are having a hard time. I'm president of the Michigan Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. I'm also president of the local chapter right now until January. But one of the things Republicans are known for is that when there's legislation out there that affects people with disabilities or other marginalized situations, you never see or very seldom see a Republican name on the bill to be a sponsor. We have one out now with the Web Accessibility Act regarding webs and websites and applications. No Democrat is a sponsor. And the far right and the courts have diminished the Americans with Disabilities Act at times. So they give the impression that they don't really care about people who have special needs and differences. And even in the churches, you have very unwillingness. They'll deal with the racial issues, but they won't deal with the disability issues on an equal basis. And the difference I see between the right and the left is the right shuts you out, the left shuts you down.
That's interesting. Well, let me ask you, because I think there's a reason why you don't see Republicans getting into some of those bills and sponsoring some of those bills. I think they tend to have a belief that less government is better for operating. And so, in other words, less hands involved in the process and that some of these things ought to be left to other places, other ways to deal with the free market. For example, like you just mentioned, the website stuff and the internet. I think that might be important. You know, I got a website. I don't have anything special on it, but nobody's ever reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you put something special on your website so that it's more accessible?" And if somebody did, I'd say, you know what? Let me look at that. Let me see what it costs or what it entails, and maybe I'd do that. But in order to make a law that says everyone must do this and incur an expense and et cetera, I think Republicans are just that just goes against the grain of how they believe government should be listed. That does not mean that people shouldn't make their websites more accessible or other issues, but maybe I'm missing. Are there other issues that you're particularly concerned about, Casey? Because I think one of the things that you're bringing up that I think Republicans ought to do more of, and this ought to be just legislators, folks in general, but is listening. I think they ought to do more listening when it comes to certain things. So I'm just curious. I'd like to listen to you. What is the issue that you think needs to be dealt with, specifically top of mind here?
Well, I think there's a lot of that's really hard to separate on what the top issue is. But I think one of the issues that we struggle with is when people try to get jobs, people are not willing to be accommodating because they believe that if they don't give us what we want, that we're going to sue them. And I think that's a very poor perception. It's actually the non-disabled community that is trying to seek disability privileges or things that we have because we need them, and if they don't get them, they're the ones that usually file the lawsuits. But so I think to understand where we are, what we need people to be like what Ken Sikkema used to be, and Vern Ehlers and Paul Henry. These people were Republicans, but they got into the needs and programs. I worked with them for years in the profession I was in, but I can go back to when Governor Engler was the governor, and his office was very snooty about the Business Enterprise Program, which is a business program that's a federal law that I did for 31 years. I was part of, had different facilities around the state. But the Democrats, when Jennifer Granholm was in, she was at least moderate, that sort of thing, and we were a part of, and I was actually part of Channel 8's panel for one of their governor's panel shows that they had. So I think that the right, if they want to really, I understand the big issues, but they have to be willing to expand their base. They got to go past just those big issues. They need to be part of. We need to be part of them. They need to be part of us.
Well, your point's well taken, Casey. I appreciate the phone call. I hear you saying, "Hey, you got to reach out to more people," and I think that's a good point. Yeah, thank you for calling in. Now there is a difference between reaching out and bringing people into the big tent. Really, the big issues you're hoping are going to bring people into the big tent. There's a difference, though, between actually reaching out and then pandering. Pandering is a whole other thing. In fact, that's what the Democrats do in a lot of these situations. They take groups, they'll go out and tell these groups, you're victims, you're marginalized, and only we are going to stand up for you. Now, that's been effective in a lot of ways. What I hear Casey saying is, hey, I'm conservative, but I also would like a little help in these areas. I don't want to vote for Democrats. Now, I get that. I think that makes sense. Now, how that ends up playing, I don't know. What does the next generation of the Republican Party look like? I know there's some soul searching happening right now. I think I will tell you this. What is happening right now and the success or failure isn't about necessarily the topics or the ideas that folks on the right have. In fact, I think most of those are pretty mainstream. I think it's more about the process of how the elections are being held. And I'm not saying, oh, it's all fraud. And that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is the ballot harvesting, the way elections are being run right now, and will be, particularly here in Michigan into the future, The folks on the right, Republicans, they have to get on board that train. They have to do what Democrats have done in order to make sure that they ensure their victories, because it's being done in California. It's being done in New York. They ought to go out there and make sure that they are fully participating in getting these different strategies. There's all kinds of things. And I don't have time to get into them all now, but it's how the elections are run, not necessarily, what issues folks are running on that are the issue. And I would even go as far as to say it's not necessarily personalities as much as it is how the elections are being run. They've got to have a better strategy. And I'm not a Republican, certainly not a Democrat, but I'm not like, I am. I kind of feel like I'm a little more independent. I don't really feel like I want to belong to any party or the other. But at the end of the day, I am certainly more conservative. Got a libertarian bent too. Got a little bit of a libertarian lean to me as well. But I do not necessarily line up at all with Democrats on hardly anything. Maybe old school in some ways. There may have been some issues that we would have aligned on, but man, oh man, I not these Democrats who are completely out in left field. Mike in Holland, how are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Good, brother. Appreciate you calling in. What can I do for you?
Well, the marriage act that the Senate just passed it's kabuki theater. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. The Constitution is very clear about what marriage being a union of a man and a woman. So it's not an amendment to the Constitution. So it's a waste of paper and time.
Well, I think you're right about a lot of that. That's why I said it's not the biggest issue. But I do think it is going to be an issue because they're going to use it to target. There will be attorneys general in states like Michigan, Dana Nessel, particularly this hot button her. But there will be folks in these states that will go out and will target certain, let's just say, the churches, religious nonprofits, social services. They will go out and target adoption agencies, things like that. They will go out and target these places, and they'll challenge them on certain things. Biden administration might even challenge, the tax exempt status on some churches in some ways. And there are going to be a lot of open windows and places for attacks to happen. That's the biggest issue I see. I do think you're right, though. I think when all is said and done, the dust settles on this, the Supreme Court will rule as you said. I think that's true.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate it. I think the bigger issue here, though, is to look at the Republicans who voted. Why are they voting in this way? Why do they vote the way they vote? Why do these people run as one thing, conservative, and then vote a different way? It's baffling, but it continues to happen again and again. That question really comes back to this one for you is, why do you keep voting them in? And I don't necessarily mean you, but people in general. Why do they keep getting voted in? We'll grab your calls coming up next. You can join the program at any time. 616-774-2424. Also on the iHeartRadio app, just click the talkback feature, that microphone button right next to the play button there. Thanks to MKD Funeral Homes. Men, thank you for all that you do. You probably don't hear this enough, but we appreciate you. In fact, men, we need you. We need you in a fight. At home, to be the best husbands you can be, the best fathers you can be, at work, in your calling, wherever it might be. We need you to show up in the way that you were created to. Maybe you got anxiety, depression, you're feeling irritable, maybe fatigued, tired all the time. If you experience some weight gain, muscle loss, it might be your testosterone levels. The only way you'll know is if you get checked. The good news is, folks at Mentality are here to help. Mentality is a local healthcare facility specifically dedicated to helping men feel and perform at their very best. They've got FDA-approved testosterone treatments, board-certified physicians who work with most insurance. You can find out more if you go checkout mentality today. Go to lowtusa.com. That's lowtusa.com. Go to lowtusa.com. Take your life back. All right, did we get kicked off of Facebook again? Something weird happening with our Facebook. I was just told that we got kicked off again, but I see live on there. No, looks like we're live. Okay, so if you can I said, did we get kicked off Facebook again? And Karen said yes. But if you can hear me or see me, Karen, we're here. We did not get kicked off again. Okay, no, we're here. We're here. Everybody's here. Okay. There are probably comments that I'm seeing that are popping up from the last, just the way this whole thing works. It's from the last one. Roto Report coming up. Got some Roto Report news to hand to you as well. Yeah, China's still going crazy. Okay. Let me send a quick message. All right. Here we go, folks. Back on the air. Yeah, join the program at any time. You can do it at 616-774-2424. We're going to Saugatuck. Is it Thorn?
Yeah.
Thorn, appreciate you calling in. What'd you want to hit on this morning?
Well, it's about the railroad strike. My dad used to work for the railroad here, and it's TSX now. And every time that they would go on strike, the government would always put their 2 cents in, and then the guys wouldn't get what they needed. And Jason, I want to tell you, them guys work under some extreme conditions, especially the engineers. When they come across a crossing and a carload of family crosses right in front of them and they can't stop, and they need some good stuff for them, raises, whatever, sick days and that. And when the government always puts their two feet in it, it always gets screwed up.
Well, that's what it looks like might happen today. They say they're going to step in and help out. We'll find out. The House vote today on some sort of bill that would avert, they say, the freight rail strike that's set to happen today. The strike, if it did take place, 100,000 union members would be off work. And I think it's well, I mean, with everything else we got right now, the price of diesel and everything else, it would not be a good time for anybody.
Right. Well, if you ask some union guys about being off work, I think a lot of them would, probably about 90% of them would say, yeah, because we need better conditions. They work in snow, rain, whatever. They got to get the job done so they can keep moving freight. And, when you're not getting wages like everybody else, the auto.
Well, can I stop you for a second? Because Thorne, I appreciate it. But, it's hard for everybody right now. I mean, right. It's hard for everybody. I'm not denying they have a tough job. Of course they do. But, everybody's got a tough job right now. I think, striking, I don't know the full insides and outs of what they're what they're after and what they want to get done and what they've been through. But I want to say this is that they're going on strike and it's going to cripple the country. Now, I understand they might have to do that in order to, have their leverage to get what it is that they want to get. But listen, you can't say, hey, it's, that they have tough time. They have a tough situation because nobody makes them work that job, So, I mean, right now, apparently, I don't know. You could get a job anywhere you want right now. I don't know if it's going to pay the same. But I know the hours are tough there, especially working holidays and things like that. They never close that stuff down. They got to keep moving. It's just like trucks. And I understand, but these folks are the backbone. They're essential. They're what keep the country moving. But you can't just say, hey, well, they got a tough job. They need more money. We all need more money. But the problem is, if you pay them more money, then everything else costs more. It's just like saying, hey, we want to give $15. I saw a store in Lowell, McDonald's store in Lowell wants to give their workers $15 an hour. Well, I thought, wow, I mean, that's great. I mean, give them 25. Why stop at 15? Why don't you give them $50 an hour? Because the burgers will cost at the end of the day $10 just for one burger, and we're getting close to that anyway, as it is.
Yeah.
So we're on a tough. Go ahead, Thor. Yeah.
What I'm trying to tell you is that these guys have been behind the pay scale for like your factory workers and other workers. Like my dad said, when they try to go on strike, the government always put their foot in it. Why can the automakers and everything else go on strike? And they do honestly hurt the economy, but yet, if the railroad is so important, why aren't they trying to take care of these guys instead of just letting conditions, tracks, whatever, they're not giving them any money to fix nothing up. I mean, these guys are running equipment that sometimes are well, I wouldn't go in it, but they have to, or they'll lose their jobs,
well, I can appreciate that. Unfortunately, I got to run because we're going to wrap up the show here. But thank you, Thorne, for calling in. I know they got it tough. I understand. I wouldn't want to do that job. I mean, gosh, I'm grateful to be able to do the job that I do. It's nothing compared to that. But listen. you think things are tough now? If they go on strike, you see where we're at. We're really in a perfect storm scenario. It will shut the country down. So hopefully it doesn't have to come to that, but perfect storm scenario, folks. You just might want to get ready. I don't know. Might want to have a little bit of extra food on hand. Want to be able to stay warm if you can. We're going into the wintertime. It's not just about Christmas getting stuff to and from. Your presents and things like that. There's a lot more going on. Now, I understand it's quality of life is what Ruth is saying in the chat. They're fighting for quality of life issues. I saw this other post that says it's really more about time off. They need more time off and things like. I don't know. They work lots of hours. I don't know the full story. If you working around, I'd love to talk to you. Maybe we can find out what's really going on. But I've got to say this, and I don't mean to sound insensitive, but we all get to choose what it is, that we do or don't do in some ways. And I don't want to say, hey, I want to play football for the NFL and I could choose that. No, I'm saying that, in some ways we have to choose. We make choices every day, and, nobody's forcing people to work certain jobs. That being said, you know what? I do agree. Companies ought to take better care of their employees. And here's what I'll tell you. This is just a free market. Well, I know there's greed and everything else involved, but when you're doing things right and you're taking care of people, you're taking care of your employees, they are going to do a better job for you. When you give them time that they need, you think rail's bad. What do you find out what they do in the hospitals to the hospital staff? And they're working life and death too, another life and death situation. Lots of things are on the verge of crumbling. And I will tell you this. Sometimes it seems, I don't know, get my tinfoil hat on, but sometimes it seems that's right where they want them. Folks, we got so much to cover. We didn't have a check. I just wanted to get through some phone calls today But we've got so much to cover. We'll continue on our after show. You can join us. 616-774-2424. Did you hear about this strange story? Speaking of my tinfoil hat. 5 of Biden's Secret Service car rentals burst into flames after he left Nantucket on vacation. What in the world happened there? The curse of the crypto. Third billionaire dies in just the same amount of weeks. Run a report you won't want to miss. The gold standard study shows an N95 mask just as worthless as the regular cloth masks and more. We'll get to all of it during the after show. Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, YouTube, JustinBarclay.com. Make it a great day, folks. God bless. Talk to you tomorrow. Okay. Let me just make one additional adjustment here. There we go. Now I think we're good. All I have to do is click a few buttons and we'll be kicking off the after show. Capitalism works. That's a good point. Capitalism does work. Hang on, folks. Welcome to the after show, the show after the show. It is the after show. Yes, there is never a dull moment and never enough time to get through it all. Randy said as it's coming up today, we just ran through the fastest hour in radio. So that's why we get the after show coming up. A couple of the big stories. Senate voting, Democrats for this gay marriage bill, 12 Republicans joining them to vote yes. We talked a little bit about that earlier. We'll break down some more of that. The House voting today to possibly avert a rail strike. Will they? I do seem to agree with the caller who called in. Every time, he said, his dad said, every time Washington gets involved, they seem to screw things up. Well, I think that's probably a lot of truth to that. And then the Oath Keepers, without entering the Capitol, without weapons, convicted in seditious conspiracy January 6th, never entered the Capitol. Never enter the Capitol. Some sort of seditious conspiracy. Now, again, there were no weapons involved. They say the Justice Department alleging the Oath Keepers conspired to forcibly stop the peaceful transfer of presidential power. Again, without weapons. So I don't know if it was the grandma who was walking through with a flag in January. I mean, I don't know if that was going to do it. I'm just telling you, we're supposed to believe that there was some sort of massive. And why? Because, well, why does this matter? Because this is the slippery slope. The window is opening. We'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. Plus, Conspiracy Corner. I feel like get the tinfoil hat out. I feel like we got several strange stories today. Yeah. Curse of crypto. Third billionaire dies in weeks. Crypto billionaire. 5 of Biden's Secret Service car rentals burst into flames after he leaves the island. And 37-year-old songwriter suddenly and unexpectedly dies. Lots of Conspiracy Corner talk today with our tinfoil hat. Gang, I don't know. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot happening today. So we'll try to get into it all. And, of course, like I said, the Rona Report. We'll do it all. Stand by. Let's see. What else? Oh, I probably shouldn't forget. Preparewithjustin.com, our sponsor. Preparewithjustin.com. The folks at My Patriot Supply, they're taking care of you. Christmas gift sale, save up to 67% off on all of the great goodies they've got on their store. We're talking about a possible rail strike. I don't know how to be more obvious. I don't know how to be more forceful to tell you, folks, you've got to get ready. We don't know what's coming. Save $100 right now on a 4-week food supply, whether it's a 4-week food supply or more, a full year. My policy is we pray like it all depends on God, and we prepare like it all depends on ourselves. It's My Patriot Supply. The last freeze-dried, it lasts, 25 years on the shelf. It ships fast, in a lot of cases, free. Preparewithjustin.com is the website. And when you go there, not only are you prepared, you're getting something good for yourself, you're also helping support this podcast. Appreciate you doing it. Appreciate you being a part of our show. And, of course, the behind-the-scenes live stream happening here as well today. All right, so the rail strike, again, I just had somebody send me a message and say, hey, it's not about money. They want time off, scheduling days off, etc. My son's an engineer. He never knows when he'll be working. He has no scheduled days off and has extremely limited ability to take off. It's totally not fair. Well, and Lori, I get that as your son. I mean, I understand, not fair isn't necessarily the way that I would put it, though. I mean, there's no such thing as fair. It's probably not good for anybody. It's not good for your son. It's probably really not good for the company, because you got workers who I can imagine are less productive. They're less happy. You got problems at home, all those kinds of things. But nobody made him become this engineer. I had to tell you, I mean, this is just a fact. I'm not saying look, I know it's tough, and I understand. I'm not saying I don't sympathize, but I do. I have a family that works in the medical field, and it's just as bad. I won't say where, but it's just as bad. Never getting time off like you're supposed to at certain times. Constantly being called in. Sometimes it's been so bad that they get called mandated. So if I already worked 12 hours or whatever it is, and they have to work more because they can't leave. This is a legal thing. They can't leave because the other person that was supposed to be off, but they never scheduled these people off and never gave them enough time. Well, they called in or couldn't come in or whatever it might be. So they're off or not coming in. I mean, I'm telling you. It is. I know I have a hard time saying this because I actually get to do something that I enjoy doing. I like being here. I'm not digging ditches, okay? Kristen says, I work in outpatient oncology. We're slammed. I love my job, but it's what I signed up for. And that's the thing. I mean, we are walking around. Part of our problem today in this society and, of course, in our countries, we're walking around acting like we have no say in our reality and no say in our situation. In other words, we're acting like we have no responsibility for anything. I'm not saying that these people don't have it bad. I agree. I agree. They do. But you know what? I would look at making a change. Well, I can't make as much money. I don't know. We've made different choices in our family. My wife doesn't work. She's going to raise the kids. Some people I know, both mom and dad works, and mom, she's working just to put the kids in daycare, and at the end of the paycheck, when you get through the money, she's worked just to put the kids in daycare. But this is all we can do. We have to do this. We've made decisions. Not necessarily we made all great decisions, but we made this. We don't have car payments. Now, I got fired. I lost my dreams. Oh, man. This is not what the whole show is supposed to be about today, but I'll just tell you, I lost my dream job. I have largely for my entire life been able to do this work, and I'm going to tell you, I love it. It's been an absolute blessing. But I've also told God now I will go wherever you want me to go, do whatever you want me to do, I'll do that. Well, my wife doesn't have an out of the house job, Carol. She said, "Did you say your wife doesn't work?" She doesn't have an out of the house job, but her job is probably way more important and I think, a lot harder with raising a couple of kids. It's 24/7. You know. And, and I try and support her, especially with a newborn right now and a toddler or 2-year-old. It's kind of tough, but no, I'm the only one who works out of the house, so to speak. And I work in the house. I'm always working too. That's the other thing. I'm always working too. I'll go home and I'll work at home. I'll do some things at home. But I like this. I like what I'm doing. What I'm telling you is that I have made the decision to do what I'm doing. I've made the decision. 10 years ago, I lost my dream job. I mean, I was making all kinds of money, a lot more money than I'm making now. I was trying to climb that corporate ladder. Try to raise a kid and work a farm, Tabby said. Yeah, that's a good point. But, that's why you got to have more kids, because then they can help you on that farm. At least that's what the Amish tell me. You just got more kids. They can help you. They can help you go out and milk cows and the goats and all that stuff. All I'm saying is that 10 years ago, I was climbing the corporate ladder. I thought I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And I had made like this gold cage for myself, the golden handcuffs. And God gave me, I believe, as a gift. Gave me an opportunity. Do you really want this? Do you really want this? Is this what you really want to do? And I saw that they could fire me for any reason they wanted to, whenever they wanted to. They didn't have to be accountable to anybody. In fact, what they told me to do, perform in the ratings, do my job, and win, I was doing. But they still decided political reasons, and it doesn't matter why, because they made the decision to do whatever they want to do. It's their company, my radio station. They decided they wanted to fire me, go a different direction. So they did. And so I sat 10 years ago, and I thought about things. And I thought immediately when it happened, I don't know, just God just washed over me. Something better is coming. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't need that job anymore. So for the last 10 years, I've been trying to figure it out. How are we going to make this work? And one of the things was I came over to talk radio. In fact, came back from Detroit here to Grand Rapids, be with family. And God has just built, one step after the other, little pathways for us. And sometimes I go, oh my gosh, I don't know where we're going next. In fact, I do that a lot of times. Right now, I'm kind of where are we going next? God, what am I supposed to be doing right here, or should I be looking someplace else down the road? A lot of times, God will say, just look at the next step. Just look at the next step. All I'm saying is that there are people that are much better off than me because a lot of times they made better choices than I have. And there are people that aren't as well off as me because they didn't make as many of the good choices that I made. Well, I think I probably stumbled into some of them too. But it's never too late. This is my point to you. It's never too late. If you are working a job, this railroad, and we need people to do some of this hard work. We really do. But if you're working a job that you don't like, now is the time. I went through some of this. So I know there's a guy named John Acuff, and he wrote a book about this. And there are different ways that he would describe how how we change in life and how we make our decisions when it comes to jobs. Let me see if I can find the name of the book that he wrote. But I read this book. John Acuff used to work with Dave Ramsey. He wrote a book called Quitter. He wrote a book called Do Over. Start. Maybe it was Do Over. I'm trying to remember the name of the one that I read that sort of described what happens to you and how life kind of changes, particularly with jobs. And when you get to make a leap or a decision, you're going to go somewhere else, you're going to do somewhere else, or then you get pushed or whatever it is, it's going to have a way, life is going to have a way of moving you. Sometimes when these things happen, they catch us off guard, but they can be gifts. And my point to you is if you're looking around, you're thinking about what you're doing or where you are right now, you're not happy, maybe now is a good time to think about what it is you might do instead. I don't know. Now, I'm not saying, I want to preface all of this, folks, but just to say, I'm not saying that I don't think that these folks deserve or should have better treatment. They should have days off. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying to you is a lot that's being communicated right now, and the emotional argument of all of this is that these people don't have a choice, but we all have a choice. The problem with where we're at and how we get to this place is we run around thinking we don't have choices. We run around thinking to ourselves, oh, I got no choice. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got no choice. Al says, I stand with the rail workers. I do too. I'm with people. I want the best for each person. But I want us to be honest about this stuff. I want us to be honest about this stuff. Folks, how many people were fired from their jobs, went without a paycheck because they were forced to make the decision, get the jab or not? Do those people get reinstated? Fear, all of these things are being used against us on a daily basis to coerce us to do things against our will. We have to make honest decisions. We have to talk about these things. Things are changing so rapidly and at such a pace right now. I don't know where we head. I don't know where we go at some point. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know how long I expect to be doing what I'm doing, but I love doing it. I just got to the point where I realized, my job isn't who I am. My job isn't what makes me. Job isn't my ID. And there was a point, I had to make a tough decision. I'm getting close to making a tough decision whether or not I was going to do certain things or not to keep my job. And I was starting to think about what are the alternatives? What are my options? See, that's all you have to do is you think about your options. What are your options? You want as many options as you can get. You want to be in as much control as you can. But at the end of the day, you have to tell yourself, only so much I can do. God will take the wheel from here. Because we have a choice, but we have to consider many factors while considering our choices: health insurance, retirement investments, pay, etc. We can't just quit willy-nilly. See, I want to be as gentle and as kind as possible. These all things that you believe are forcing you to make certain decisions. You think I have? I don't have health insurance with my company, with the company I work for. I go out and get my own. Do we even have to have health insurance? There's a company called, I'm looking into them right now because I really want to. There's two, actually. There's MediShare and then there's Christian Healthcare Ministries. I've heard advertising with Dave Ramsey, and we'll look into them too. But do you really have to have health insurance? Why am I even looking into health insurance? It's because, well, you have to have health insurance. Well, what is health insurance making you do to have them now? And what are you, if you're paying your health insurance bill, what are you subsidizing? Are you subsidizing all this crazy woke nonsense? Some of the wacky things that they're doing, the transgender mutilation surgeries to kids and whatnot? You have to think about that. Retirement investments, etc. I don't know. I don't ever really plan on retiring. And I'm not telling you, and I think you make a good point, we can't just quit willy-nilly. We shouldn't just do anything willy-nilly. But we have told ourselves this story that this is how things have to be, and of course we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. Folks, this is how we get to a very bad place. I'm only just doing my job. Got to keep my job because, we're running around as slaves if we do that without mindfully considering things, thinking about things, etc. That's a problem. That is a major issue. We cannot do things like that. We'd be running around like bots. Carrie says, lay not your treasures on earthly things, but lay up your treasures in heaven. Amen. I made the choice not to have a new car in the driveway so I could stay home to raise my sons. It's all priorities. That's what I'm talking about. Charlene, you nailed it. You nailed it. You nailed it. We have to think about these things. Al, you're missing a point. Railroad workers take care of us. Absolutely, they do. You're missing the point, though. Christian Health Ministry is a good plan. I'm using it, Mary says. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm looking into these things, looking at alternatives, because I think, the way we've been doing things in a lot of different ways, I don't think it's working. Terry says, I've put in that situation many times as an owner operator. Can I quit right now? And can I make my truck payment, or do I keep going? We ought to take better care of these people just because that's the right thing to do. If we take better care of these people, then they will be more productive. But let's not act like people don't have choices. That's a problem. I tell this story in my book, Good News, Hope, and Encouragement for Trying Times. You ought to check it out. I talk about the story of two brothers. One very successful, rich man, the other self in prison. And they're twins, by the way. They were raised in a family where they both felt that their environment and the way they were raised had a profound effect on the way they turned out. And the brothers were interviewed about all of this. In fact, I thought it was so strange that two twin brothers would turn out so differently. Identical twin brothers. So they asked the one in jail, how did you get here? What happened? And he said, well, they didn't really have a choice. My dad was an alcoholic. He was abusive. What I experienced in the home was just really bad. How could I not end up here? Well, the reporter went and asked the brother who was very successful, rich man, etc. How in the world did you end up here? Look at everything you've accomplished. Look at what you've done. You know what he said? How could I not? My dad was an alcoholic. I grew up in an abusive relationship, abusive home. I did not want that future for myself or my family. I had no choice. Perspective, in other words, the way we see the world is 99% of how we handle any situation in life and the reality that we end up in and with. I think it's important to illustrate because it shows us that we always have choices. We always have choices. And we have to recognize that. Sometimes it's something as simple as saying, what's my choice here? What is my choice? What are my options? What can I do here? You know what a lot of it starts out with? A lot of it starts out with saying to yourself and asking the very simple question a lot of people don't want. What do or don't do is, what do I want? What do I really want? Melissa says the narrative is 50 is midlife. It's not. Most people will live between 70 and 80 years of age. They're now making people work until they're 65, and the money machine keeps going. You know, it's interesting. I heard somebody talking about something similar today. The decade between 60 and 70 years old is your most productive decade. Somebody said. Now, I don't know if that's, do the science on that. Is that where'd that study come from? How do they know? But it's interesting. 60 to 70 years old. I don't plan on ever retiring because I actually like what I do. Maybe work a little less here and there. Maybe get a little more free time doing certain things. But I think we always see, here's how I see it. If you're breathing, there's a reason. But all this stuff of living in a certain house or buying certain things or driving certain cars or all that, that is all, as Troy calls it here in the chat, that's all keeping up with the Joneses, right? That's all stuff that's invented to make us chase things. So, again, I know this took us down a weird rabbit hole today, but just we've got to be careful. When I hear people saying we don't have a choice, or certain people don't have a choice, or we just got to be careful about that stuff. We've got to be careful about it all. And again, none of this is to say that I don't think people shouldn't be treated better. That's not what I'm saying. Ruth says, I don't see where railroad workers can just walk away for a better life. We still need the railroad workers. Well, yeah, of course we do. But you know that if all of the railroad workers right now, all of them, were listening to this very program, if they all were listening to every word that we just discussed, everything that we just said, and they say, hey, if you don't like what you're doing, go do something else. Now, I don't mean like immediately, like, hey, just go turn in your 2 weeks notice or just quit abruptly. Do you know how many of them would quit? Do you know how many of them would switch? a very, very astronomically small number. Very, very small number. It's not going to happen. Mostly because momentum, inertia, the gravity of it all, of our lives and how we live. It's a very powerful force. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. It is hard breaking the inertia. You know, when the rocket goes up through the air, when they launch one of these things, Elon Musk or whoever it is, most of the fuel is spent at the very beginning of trying to get the thing off the ground. That's the toughest part. So, you know, anytime you try to change anything, I know being on diets and losing weight and things like that, I mean, the toughest part comes at the beginning. But once you get things moving, you get into a groove. And the opposite, if you're in a place you don't want to be, you call that a rut. You get into a rut. You know? It's a way of being. You get into this place where you find yourself there and you say, okay, this is where I'm at. I get what you're saying. Some have established families and homes. It's not that easy to start over when the bills are rolling in. I've never said it was going to be easy. None of this is easy. But I'm not telling anybody what to do. But if you want something different, you have to do something different. If you want change, you're going to have to change some things. And I will say this. What I'm talking about right now is universal. In other words, this applies to every piece of our life. My parents live in the same home that I was when I was raised in. I mean, I grew up in. They love it. They will move, and I don't know even how much they love it, but they're just so used to it, and they're set in their ways, and they've been there 50 years, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I want to say it's probably almost 50 years. Now, they have a lot of friends and family who've moved and been all over the place. They both work job for 40 some odd years, whatever it was. They don't like change. My parents do not like change. They don't want to do anything different. Change is not always the easiest thing to do. It's not. A lot of us won't change until the pain of where we are gets more powerful than the thought about or the fear of the perceived pain of where we're going. All I'm doing is telling you to think about these things because that's where real freedom is. We have an opportunity right now in our world. We have an opportunity right now in our time frame, whatever you want to call this, where we are, that we get to decide where it is that we want to go. As a country, as a people, as families, we get to decide. But in order to make sure that we are the ones doing the deciding and not some Bond villain, Klaus Schwab from over in Davos, making decisions on our behalf for us, we've got to get clear on what it is we want and why we want it. So if you haven't done so yet, think about what you want and why you want it. I'm not saying it's always going to work out. I'm not saying it's going to always be easy. But it's worth it. It's worth it. A couple of reasons. When everything was going crazy and they were talking about mandates for this, that, and the other thing, I never worried. I considered what I might do. I knew God would take care of me because he always provides. But I thought, okay, how could I get around this? What can I do? What can I do if I had to have, there was a mandate and I had to, because I don't like being told mandated to do anything, folks, period. I just don't. Particularly in this case, I was pretty dead set against everything. But it honestly, it came with having made decisions up front and prior that put me in a place of freedom, that I am not beholden to one particular situation or another. And I was confident that I would figure things out if I needed to, and that more certain of God's always got a plan. What is that plan? I don't know. So all of that to say, again, these weird rabbit holes we get down. Now's the time. I know Steve and Shelley on here have their own farm. They have prepared in ways that I haven't even begun to think of. I mean, if it hits the fan, I'm going to Steve and Shelley's. Now, I don't know if they have room for all of us. They may not even have room for me now. The family's growing at such a big rate now. But, they have made decisions. They've had tough decisions, I'm sure. I mean, look at all the effort and the work they've put into building their farm and how much they've spent on, just diesel. I know, like lately, things like that, but the cost of everything's gone up and through the roof. It's big. We all have choices. We all have choices. And we cannot negate that we make them on a daily basis. By the way, I think that's part of what the conservative ideology is that we all get a say in how things work. We all get a say in our own destiny. We all get a say, and we ought to all get a say in what our lives look like. That's why it's so important. All right. That being said, who has their tinfoil hat ready? Can you get it out? Get it out. We got a couple of stories in the conspiracy corner. We'll get to that are just mind-boggling. 5, that's at least the news according to Fox, 5 Secret Service rental vehicles used by the Secret Service for Biden when he was on Nantucket. 5 of them bursting into flames. And the pictures just make you go, what the heck happened here? Here's a couple of them. Look at them. They're fried. These things are fried. So what? No, seriously, though, what happened? Were these somebody said, were these electric vehicles? Good question. I don't know. Biden spent the Thanksgiving weekend and whatnot on the island of Nantucket. You probably saw him running around getting pictures with kids and sniffing hair and all of that. Well, the Secret Service had rented out 5 different vehicles from Hertz. And carried the president and his family, and all 5 of them apparently were caught fire. Footage shows firefighters spraying down the smoldering remains of one of the vehicle's engines blocks. Now, I just read this. I know. I don't think that these cars carried the president, but they may have carried people in the entourage or the Secret Service or something like that. Here are the 5 vehicles: a Chevy Suburban, a Ford Explorer, Infiniti QX80. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a Suburban or something else. A Ford Expedition, and a Jeep Gladiator. The vehicles were parked at the Nantucket airport, and the blaze reportedly spread to just 40 feet away from the facility's jet fuel tanks. Whoa. Currently unknown what caused the fire. Fox News reached out to the White House for information. They did not immediately respond. Approximately 5:22 in the morning, airport shift staff observed an active fire in the rental car overflow area through the airport's closed-circuit television system. The airport said in a statement to the current staff activated the alert system and responded to the fire. Airport 3, where they were met by responding units. Yada yada yada. So, what do you think? I mean, I'm just curious. What do you think caused this issue? What do you think caused this problem? It's just so weird, isn't it? It is sort of unusual that all 5 caught fire. I know. Your brain just goes. It goes to some weird places. My tinfoil hat. I don't know. Is it on too tight? Rhonda says, hey, great shirt idea. The choice is yours. So are the consequences. Ooh, I kind of like that. I don't know how popular that'll be, but it's crazy. So who said this? Was this like Russia or China? China. Was it us or the CIA? Did we light these things on fire for some weird reason? There was data inside the cars, something about where they were, the trips, the GPS or something like that. That I don't know. Or was this just something other weird? Kurt says just another distraction. Jane says, I think it was arson. 5 different brand of SUV vehicles just don't spontaneously burn. Nothing to see here, says Kathy. I know. It's just so weird. It's just another one of those weird. But here's another one. Curse of the crypto. Get my tinfoil hat, make sure it's still secured. A billionaire. Another one of these crypto billionaires apparently dies. It was a young kid just maybe a couple of weeks back. This guy was in his 50s, third crypto boss, dies after Russian billionaire's helicopter crashes. Now, this wasn't like the jab or anything weird like that. No. This was just a helicopter crash. Nothing to see here. The third cryptocurrency trader to suddenly die in recent weeks. Just a coincidence? Maybe. Was there something else happening? I'm going to butcher his name if I try and say it. Vyacheslav? I'm not saying it right. Taran, 53, the co-founder of trading investing platform Libertex, died after the helicopter mysteriously crashed in a resort town near Monaco. The vehicle plummeted on November 25th, killing Mr. Taran, who had lived in Monaco for a decade, as well as his veteran pilot. Libertex said in a statement, it's with great sadness the group confirms the death of its co-founder, chairman of the board of directors. He's a growing list of powerful people. He's the latest in a growing list of powerful people in Vladimir Putin's Russia to abruptly die, so this metro.co.uk says. The deaths of often reported as suicides have included energy, oil, finance, and shipping bosses, as well as oligarchs and millionaires. But 3 crypto stars have also died in recent weeks. The other one was this guy, Chan Kulander, I think is his name. Let me see. There's a picture of him. Mr. Kulander, I think I told you the latest, died in his sleep, just 30, last week, while millionaire Nikolai Moshizhin, 29, drowned on a Puerto Rico beach. Mr. Moshizhin died only hours after tweeting that he heard the CIA and Mossad, America and Israel's national intelligence agencies, were going to murder him. Oof. I don't, Can it get any weirder? Can any of this stuff get any weirder? I've got another one for you, another crazy conspiracy theory. Tinfoil hat wearing folks only, apparently. 37-year-old singer-songwriter, I think it's a country artist. Jake Flint, who I don't know much about. I do like it, but I'm not a big modern day country fan. He died suddenly and unexpectedly just hours after getting married. It's such a tragic story. So sad. His wife, we said we should be going through wedding photos, but instead I have to pick out clothes to bury my husband in. What a just a tragic story. People aren't meant to feel this much pain. My heart is gone, and I just really need him to come back. I can't take much more. I need him here. Flint's bride, Brenda, wrote in a heart-rendering Facebook post. No details about his death. They really don't have many listed here in the article. But another sudden and unexpected death. And really, who knows? I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what exactly happened. But again, these kind of things are happening more and more these days, aren't they? Time for a runner report. A high priest of health, Dr. Tony Fauci. St. Anthony of Wuhan, Mr. Booster. I think we got kicked off of Facebook again. It's the second time today. Something fishy going on there. And as I'm talking about some of these conspiracy theory stories, I'm sure nothing to see here. The latest story, the gold standard, Kyle Becker writes on his KyleBeckerNews.com, the gold standard scientific trial deals massive blow to N95 and surgical masks way to stop COVID. In other words, they did the research on this stuff. I guess this is a randomized control trial, the gold standard for scientific evidence in the medical community, released in Tuesday, the Annals of Internal Medicine. The results: study deal a major blow to the advocates of N95 and surgical masks as effective means to stop COVID. They say the study details 1,009 healthcare workers in 4 countries who provided direct care to patients with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 were given either N95 respirators or medical masks and tracked over the course of 9 weeks. The study was not able to blind the participants because, people could see that they were wearing masks. It should be noted that the 2 of these medical settings experienced no major reported medical outbreaks, but what they're saying is that there really wasn't any difference between the people wearing the N95s and wearing the regular medical masks. And I say to that, shocker. Imagine that. Oh, imagine that. So we've known this. We've known this for a while, but this is not good news for them. Not good news. Not at all. Embarrassing news for Apple. Well, because it all ties in. It's happening over in China. They have turned off a private communication tool in China. They turned it off just days before the major protests broke out over there. This is the way that people can send things to each other. It's called AirDrop, without having to be tracked or go through some sort of social media or whatnot. This is just phone to phone. You have to be in person within a few feet to do this. But apparently, Apple have turned off this feature on their phone. in China. Now, why would they do that? Earlier this month, Apple restricted the use of AirDrop in China. The file sharing tool for iOS was used by protesters to communicate freely without the risk of censorship because the tool uses direct connections between devices, creating a local network that cannot be monitored by government internet regulators. So it appears that Apple is trying to help the Chinese Communist Party. By making it tougher for these protesters to communicate. Of course, Apple's got their factories over there. They're in the pockets of the Chinese Communist Party. I think it's never been more obvious, maybe I should say. Initially, people could choose to receive airdrops from everyone nearby. However, a recent iOS update has made that impossible. The update made a change to airdrops usage that only applies in mainland China. While the rest of the world can still use it to communicate as before, users in China can only receive from everyone nearby for only 10 minutes, putting restrictions on how it's used. AirDrop has been used by protesters in Hong Kong to communicate with other protesters and bystanders, as well as send messages to tourists from mainland China. On the mainland, protesters have used AirDrop to spread protest literature. According to Bloomberg, Apple will roll out the Everyone for 10 Minutes feature globally next year, but it's not clear why the feature was suddenly rolled out in China, especially during a time of such upheaval. Apple has helped Beijing to suppress public dissent multiple times, mostly by complying with its request to remove apps used by protesters. Apple is at it again. More from Fauci. You know, he had to give that deposition the other day. Apparently, when he did, he had to ask the person who was doing the deposition, the court reporter, to wear a mask. He asked her to put a mask on, even after we know they don't work. He knows they don't work, but he asked her to put a mask on after she sneezed. You're just not. You can't believe some of this stuff. You just can't believe. Sudden memory loss he suffered as well during his deposition. Suffered sudden memory loss. Couldn't recall. I don't recall, is what he said over and over when he was asked. I don't recall. Anderson, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I don't recall. Yesterday, Biden visiting Michigan. If you were there, you may recall protesters meeting the resident with chants. You know, I actually heard something else in there too. I heard Joe is a pedophile. I mean, this guy's supposedly got, most votes in the history of any presidential candidate. Well, that's what we're told anyway. Most votes in the history of any presidential candidate. More tomorrow. We'll cover more glimpses of some of the things that we're dealing with. We got a little bit of a rabbit hole today, but hey, listen. Sometimes there's a need for that sort of thing. Well, listen. I appreciate you as always. I appreciate our lively conversations. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for helping share this. They're watching Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Getter, YouTube, all the usual suspects. Help us get the word out. We appreciate you as always. Anything you grab on the store helps support this program. Anything that you grab from one of our sponsors helps support this program. So we appreciate you doing that as well. Wishing you the best, folks. Make it a great day. Back tomorrow morning. God willing. I know it's not popular to hear and say these days, but men, we need you. You're important. We need you to be the best fathers, the best husbands, the best in your calling, showing up at work no matter where you are. We need you to be who you're created to be. And that's why if you're feeling a little low energy, weight gain, muscle loss, maybe you're tired all the time, irritable, there could be help for you. Mentality, a local healthcare facility specifically dedicated to helping men feel and perform at their very best. Say it could be your testosterone levels causing these issues. Look, don't feel guilty. It could be diet, could be environment. It could just be age. Sooner or later, life catches up with all of us. But there is help. Mentality has FDA-approved testosterone treatments, board-certified physicians who work with most insurance. You can check out how they help today. Go to lowtusa.com to find out more about Mentality. That's lowtusa.com. Go to low, the letter T, USA.com, and take your life back today.